If everyone can hear me, if you can't hear me in the back, raise your hand. Good. Okay. This first question is a two-part question, and it will be asked first of Mr. Poynter. Oh, would you like for that, Sheila? Would you like for them to go through and introduce themselves first?
Oh, yes. Sorry, 1 minute.
Okay, sorry.
1 minute each.
Okay.
They had 2 minutes.
I'm sorry, the 1 minute closing. 2 minute introduction. 1 minute closing. 2 minutes introduction.
Got it? Okay. Would you like to start, Tim?
Sure, why
Come
not?
back this way.
My name's Tim Poynter, and I moved here from Cincinnati 25 years ago with my lovely wife and 4 children, all products of the Fernandina Beach High School. And I came here for a job, and that didn't work out after a couple of years. We got into the restaurant business, and we pretty much have never looked back. Early on, I became involved with the city. I was on the Environmental Advisory Board years ago, which is now a defunct board. They do that after a while. Then I became a commissioner. I served as a commissioner 2 times. I currently serve on the HDC, and I was a volunteer lifeguard for water aerobics and laps during the winter months to help out the community because they didn't have all the kids because they're all in school. So that's what I've been doing, and we're getting ready to open up another business, and we do all this because this is a great community.
Christy Kelly.
I'm Christy Kelly. Am I speaking up? No, they're all saying no. Christy Kelly. I'm against him for City Commission Seat 3. Is that better? Yeah. There, I can hear it now. I'm running because I love being here. I have a daughter in Fernandina Beach High School. I come from just one county down, Duval County. Live in a beach town down there. My other daughters went to Fletcher, the next at the beach high school, just down the road. So I get the culture. I love the culture here, the island, and the lifestyle. I fell in love with the neighborhood, and I decided I wanted to serve. I want to serve the residents and the business owners and taxpayers of the city of Fernandina Beach.
Thank you, Christy. Genece Minshew.
Hello everybody, I'm Genece Minshew, and I'm running for City Commission Seat 2. It's a real treat to be here because for 13 years I did taxes in this building 3 days a week for 3 months. So it's like home to me to come back to this rec center because I got to meet a lot of really wonderful people here during my time doing taxes. I'm running because I believe that voters should have a clear voice for their city commission. We need a city commission that's responsive to the people of Fernandina Beach and not to any organization whose goal is to make money, never mind the safety and the quality of life for our individual citizens. I promise to be fair, honest, and ethical with every action and decision that I make. And there's nothing that will come in front of the City Commission that I will have to recuse myself from, because I just do not have those kinds of conflicts. I'm just a retired homeowner here in Fernandina Beach. We've lived here for 15 years full-time. We've had a house here for about 25. I'm really kind of thinking of myself as a sort of a resident here. My father's family moved here in the 1930s when the mills first opened. And I have uncles and grandfathers who worked at the mill. I have cousins who are still live here. My grandfather was buried at Bosbello. So Fernandina Beach is very important to me. I'm a strong advocate for ensuring that the comp plan and the LDC are followed so that we can protect our natural resources and the way of life as we deal with issues of growth and density. So again, I'm very happy to be here, and I am very excited to see all these people here. I think this is clearly the biggest forum that I've ever been to. So thank you, and I look forward to talking more about what's important to me and to the city. Thanks.
Thank you, Genece. Now, Joyce Tuten. Yeah, there it is. All right. Hi, my name is Joyce Tuten. I am a retired high school science teacher. We have 2 kids. My husband's a retired colonel in the U.S. Army. He was actually born into the Army. His dad was 30 years in the Army also. His dad's from North Florida. And his parents owned a property here for almost 50 years. So moving his entire life with the Army, this was the only place that felt like home when we finally were able to retire. So we bought a super funky, awesome old property near the Greenway, and we love it here. We always hoped we could retire here, and kind of pinch myself that we really did make it here. So we arrived, and I did what always did with all our Army communities, jumped right into volunteering, turtle patrol, shorebird nest protection, invader, raider, invasive plant removal with the city. I helped form Conserve Nassau. Started going to meetings 3 years ago, advocating for a lot of issues we all care about, and would come home to my husband, and we would sit in shock with some of the votes that went down, and really not sure about the direction of the city. And I started thinking, I still want to live here 30 years from now, and I don't think it's going where we want it to go. One of my sisters sits on her city commission, so I had a lot of long talks with her, and she assured me that, yeah, all your years of community service, PTO and Big Sister and Army Family, that you could do it. You could bring some community consensus. I sat 4 years on our city sustainability committee at our last duty station. I know how we could solve some problems here. Thanks. Thank you. And now, candidate for mayor, James Antun.
Can you hear me? Everybody good? Hi, everybody. I'm James Antun. I'm your mayoral candidate tonight. I just want to thank my wife, my parents, and my daughter for being here. I hope that could be a testament to my longevity in this town. I look forward to making sure my daughter can grow up in a place that's as beautiful as when I moved here. For those that don't know me, I've been here for nearly a decade. My wife and I own a chiropractic office, and then I have a partner where I own half of a personal training business as well. The reason why I became a commissioner was some of the challenges that I ran into in trying to get permitting and construction done for that personal training business. And I believe, sheerly based on process and principle, my goal was to join the City Commission with the expectation of fixing the culture that I was frustrated with. Currently, as we sit now, we're on the horizon of a lot of changes in our city, and I look forward to being able to not only preserve our beautiful island that we have with wonderful beaches and a wonderful downtown, but I also look forward to being able to make sure that this city can continue to maintain what it has, rather than kind of shoot from the hip. So as some of you have made me listen to me say, I'd like to discuss opportunities how we can make money for the city without increasing millage. I'd like to discuss opportunities of how we can put back public feedback to drive the agendas and meetings. And if I'm the mayor, I won't stop until we can allow that to be the very first priority, that the people are heard first.
Okay, thank you, James. Thank you all candidates for being here. Are we ready to start the questioning now? Okay.
Okay, can we have 30 seconds each to roll up and
Absolutely.
we get that every week.
Okay, we're ready to get started, we will start with the first question. And this first question is a two-part question, and it will go first to Tim Poynter. Tim, what opportunities and obstacles do you see currently facing the city of Fernandina Beach? And what does the future of the city look like to you?
Well, first of all, I see the glaring absence of leadership, and when you don't have leadership, other things seem to fall apart. And I think over the last couple of years, we've really had struggling with leadership on the commission, and that is really the reason why I'm running again. The challenges of not having a city manager for the last year and a half, and the boondoggles that have happened right along with that, by not listening to the community at the beginning of the meeting, yet putting them at the end. This is the type of thing that I would like to see changed, and it needs to be changed quickly. This is a beautiful community. There's a reason why people want to come and live here. They don't want the overdevelopment. I am 100% in favor of property rights, but the citizens also have property rights. And those property rights are in all of the assets that the city has. And I'm not in favor of the city spinning off, selling off joint ventures with those on our properties for the betterment of one or two individuals. The way I look at this community is it's important to keep our LDL, our land development code, not change it, and that's the reason why we have what we have now. And if you start tinkering with that, we're going to have a big issue.
Okay, thank you. The same question goes to you, Genece.
I also think that the lack of leadership that we've seen in the last couple of years has been a real obstacle to our success. I think the other obstacle to our success is what I think of as long-term planning. We have a 5-year capital improvement plan, which is not being followed, and doesn't really make any sense when you look at it as it compares to the budget. We need to be thinking longer term about what it is we want the city to be. We need to start dealing with issues of resiliency. We need to deal with the downtown revitalization. And when we talk about resiliency, we're not just talking about the waterfront. We're talking about right out here at Egan's Creek in Atlantic. We're talking about Escambia Slough. We're talking about the flooding that we're all seeing this week, right? My street's flooded with it's never flooded before. So those are the kinds of obstacles that I think all fall back to leadership and long-term planning. I think the opportunities are everywhere for us. We have an incredibly beautiful community and an incredibly beautiful island that needs to be cared for properly, that needs to be closely managed in terms of growth and density. And I think we can do that with a city commission that has a better long-term view. And I think what the future looks like for me is very much what it looks like today, only better managed and better supported. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you. The same question now goes to you, Christy. And I would like to say, if any of the candidates at any point need for me to repeat the question because it is a long line here, I'll be happy to do so. What opportunities and obstacles do you see currently facing the city of Fernandina Beach? And what does the future of Fernandina look like to you?
Microphone.
With that, I love to talk about the future of Fernandina Beach because, you know, it's such the opportunities in the future are our children, our families, you know, to take care of and put them first. The opportunities for public-private collaboration with the integrity of our small town are huge, and they're everywhere. We can bring in responsible business owners and development, responsible, do it wisely, and bring some revenue towards our city that we desperately need to get some of our projects funded without putting one penny on a taxpayer, a taxpaying resident or business. These opportunities are out there. Obstacles, we've had Jeremiah, and he's done a great job. How many hats is he wearing? He's doing so much. He's done a great job. Charlie George did a great job, but we really need a great leader, a great city manager. I'm really hoping that our new city manager will be able to meet some of our challenges because we have some major challenges. I'm pulling for her. You know, we've got some stuff to work on.
Okay, thank you. James, same question for you.
It's always hard to be the last one because people sometimes steal your thunder.
You forget her.
I say I apologize if I left you out there. But I can't disagree that leadership, which to me I'll dive into further, culture of leadership is really what this city needs. The criticism of our last permanent city manager was that the culture was not right. And whether that's true or not, whether those of you in this room agree or not, the fact of the matter is we've gone 2 years now without somebody at the helm, and as great of a job as our staff who's here has been doing to cover, the reality of it is that's not something that should ever be covered for even more than a few months. So I'd like to see a new city manager usher in a new culture. I look forward to working with our future manager, despite that it was not my first choice, but I plan to be in good faith, making sure that she has the tools that she needs from me, which is up to you citizens to tell me what you need to make sure that we can keep this community the way that it is. Because the obstacles we have besides leadership are plain and simple, money. Every city could be using more money and nobody wants to see their taxes increase. So whether or not it's the favorite topic to talk about, whether it's the My Fernandina program, whether it's discussing options for paid parking, these are the kinds of topics that I think we should at least be talking about in the town hall. And if they die on the hill, fine, but at least we've talked about it. My frustration with the current commission is that we've not been willing to talk about those things, and so we've sat here in lockstep, getting nothing done, and then occasionally committing to new projects, which we don't have the money for. So when we have a $16 to $20 million seawall, we should really be considering how we're going to budget towards that, rather than other things that arguably may be just politically convenient.
Thank you. Same question, Joyce. I think of opportunities and obstacles as going hand in hand. We are facing sort of a vision of what we all imagine the future to be for our children, for our grandchildren, but we can't wish to be there without actually putting processes in place to get there. And we're not doing that. As Genece said, we're not tying our budget to our 5-year capital improvement plan, and so we won't magically get there. Before I helped form Conserve Nassau, our name for 2 years was the Comprehensive Plan Land Development Code Working Group. It's a bit of a mouthful. We spent 2 years looking through our comprehensive plan and our land development code and laws that actually need to be changed, that need to be strengthened, that are needed to help us get to where we want to go. And it's something that I did for 4 years at our last duty station. I sat on our sustainability committee, and our job was to put our fingers in every single pot of city business and help staff identify ways to be more resilient and to put processes in place to get where we wanted to go. And you save money when you're more efficient like that, and you get someplace more effectively. And that's fiscal responsibility, not revolving door of last minute decisions. And I think we can reach our visions if we have better leadership. We have a great Vision 2045 plan. It's it's on a shelf somewhere. It's not actually being built towards. We're not getting there right now. And that's my goal, to help us get where we all would like to see the city go, because it's too beautiful to lose. We don't want to change our name to Everywhere Florida.
Thank you. The second question tonight. If elected, what issues would you view as priority and why? And by default, Tim, you're number one again.
This is tough. What would I do first? Well, you know what? I think I would get the commission all on the same page and figure out how we're going to move forward with our community. There are so many bright people in this community, so much brighter than me. They offer so much. This commission needs to listen to them. There's so much that they have to offer on so many levels. So I really think it would be having a great town hall meeting to get everyone, let's get on the same page. We haven't been on the same page for a long time. And nationally, we're not on the same page. County-wise, we're not on the same page. And locally, we're not on the same page. Let's get on the same page. We've got so many things in common. We are so fortunate to live in this beautiful community. And it's not going to take a lot to make this place great. But until we start looking at ourselves, it ain't going to happen. So that's what I do first.
Okay, thank you. Joyce, same question.
Yeah, I think we need some serious team building. I think an easy super first fix that has to happen, as Commissioner Antun already said, we pretty immediately need to move comments back to the beginning of the meeting and start some town halls. We are not all going to agree on issues, but we can come pretty close if we discuss issues. I'm one of 6 kids, and we shared a single bathroom. I played Division I soccer in college and coached soccer for 20 years. I taught high school for 17 years. I know how to deal with a lot of personalities and a lot of issues, and team build, and step back and say, oh, I never thought of that. And to admit all the things that I know I don't even know, and to open for discussion. If we don't have discussions about complex issues, we cannot solve problems. I have a master's degree in biochemistry. I'm certain that I know how to do some research and some analytical skills to help us solve our really complex problems. And we have a lot of them. This is, for being such a small town, this is a very complex town with our tourism and our oceanfront and our waterfront and an airport and a marina and a port and large industry, which, by the way, our new city manager has experience with none of those things. So I wish her well. She's going to need a lot of input and the city has a lot of really brilliant minds who want to help. We need to bring them in and find consensus.
Okay, thank you. James, same question for you, please. Sure. If elected, what issues would you view as priority and why?
Well, as we've been discussing for several months, the priority is to let the citizens drive the agendas of the meetings. And my reason for advocating the town halls was so that not only to hear that feedback for you all, to know that we're listening, but selfishly to know that I don't come into a meeting feeling blindsided when the room is full and everybody's upset about something that maybe I didn't know. So I think that would be really important, is to really establish trust in the community, and then everything can blossom from there. As I mentioned earlier, my discussions about ways the city can offset expenses without increasing millage is a high priority for me. My hope to improve the community culture, the company culture within the city staff, so that from the top down, we have people who are excited to work here, we have people who are going above and beyond, and we have departments that are filled with skilled workers, instead of where we tend to have Some departments are doing really well and maybe some aren't. So I think we should be doing an overhaul, charging this new city manager with making sure that every department is up to snuff. And if not, if there's a lack of process, if there's a lack of procedure, if there are no systems in place, this must be done. You can't have a $170 million a year budget and not have systems in place. I know my wife and myself in our business, which is just a small business of 5 to 7 employees, and every time we've fallen on our face with having a problem, we've created a process and procedure, and there's a manual 2 inches thick on how to run my office. Any one of you can walk in now and you'd know how to answer the phone. If we don't have that here for the city, we need to do that.
Thank you. Same question. This time we go to Genece.
So I'm a plan your work your plan kind of girl. And so the first thing I'd want to look at is how do we move forward? What are the priorities for the city? How do we better gain community input? What is it that we want this new city manager to be focused on, and how would those priorities be set? You know, the city has a visioning plan in January of every year, the city commissioners do. But the budget is done in October. So what year are you visioning for example? Because you're halfway into your year's budget when you start your visioning plan. So those are the kinds of things that just kind of don't make any sense to me. I also worked in corporate America for over 40 years, and I clearly understand that you cannot do anything alone. Nobody accomplishes anything by themselves. That everything has to be done in teamwork. You have to have consensus. You have to bring a lot of divergent opinions to the table and understand what all the issues are so that you can identify them and work with them and mitigate them or put plans in place to help you overcome. So I think really big priorities at this point are understanding what the concerns of the community really are, understanding how we begin to put long-term plans in place, how we begin to understand where we're going to get the revenue for some of these really, really large projects like resiliency and downtown revitalization. And then also, I would want this city manager to take a long, hard look at the organizational design in the city. Org design drives performance and drives behavior. And I think our org design could use some refreshing. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, same question goes to Christy Kelly.
Prioritize, here we are. I would begin with the budget and how we are spending our money currently on wants and not the needs of this city. We have some major issues. We have almost everything is in disrepair, and we're building a park. I think that our priorities are out of order. I would put it out to our taxpayer and residents and our business owners. What are their priorities? What are their needs? What are our infrastructure needs? We have flooding. We have rusty toilets. And again, we're building a $2 million park. We could better use that money towards other new projects. I know the park is impact fees and cannot go to repair and maintenance. It has to go to new projects. But, you know, we have new projects now on the books. We have a skate park, you know, that's come up. We have a seawall that could be considered a new project. We could put money there. I think it's important to prioritize our needs over our wants and then budget appropriately, and also 100% of the time with the taxpayers in mind, without ever costing one penny to everyone in this room. We have a spending problem, and we need to get that in line. We need to get our budget in order, our spending in line, and those are my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What does ethical leadership look like to you, and how will you help promote ethics to our city government and leadership? This question we will start with Genece.
Sure.
what does ethical leadership look like to you, and how will you help promote ethics to our city government and leadership?
Thank you. So to me, ethical leadership is transparent leadership. It is people that are open and willing to listen and willing to explain what their positions are and how they're making those decisions and what information that they're using to make decisions. To me, ethical leadership is living by example and being aware of where you're taking campaign contributions from, whether it's perfectly legal versus whether or not it looks, the optics are bad. I think those are all things that drive ethical leadership. I think we have to be also consistent and fair in how we are managing employees and how we are managing the business of the city. So, to me, that's what ethical leadership looks like. So, how do we promote that? I think you promote that through community involvement. You promote that through having better communications. You can promote that through having clear expectations of your employees, and that employees have common goals and objectives, so that they understand what it is that's expected of them, not just within the silo of their department, but across the entire organization. So those are all the kinds of things that I think can drive ethical behavior and ethical performance. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Joyce, would you take that? It was good.
When I think about raising 2 kids and teaching high school for 17 years and coaching soccer for 20 years, I feel like it's what I spent my whole life doing, teaching ethics, and my students would constantly ask me that kind of question: is this chemistry or is this ethics? And thinking about my mom, super active in our church, that it's being open and honest and brave enough to admit when you're wrong, and brave enough to open yourself to questions, and to sit in a town hall meeting and look someone in the eye and say, I have no idea. I need to go ask one of my head of my departments. I need to bring in a group and figure this out, and how are we going to make this more right, more appropriate. This community is so diverse, with people who have been here their whole lives and people who have moved here recently and tourists who come here, and if we don't all feel like we belong and are on equal footing, then okay, and that we are here on merit and not on favorship, then as Genece said, the optics of things that happen really leave one open to what is going on. I think we need to demonstrate it from ourselves first.
Okay, thank you. The same question goes to Tim.
Everything they said, plus if it doesn't feel right, don't do it. I mean, it's that simple. If there's a question about it, don't do it. If someone's telling you something and they want you to do something and it doesn't quite feel right, just don't do it. You lead by example. In our businesses that we have, we try to lead by example. I clean as many toilets as anybody else cleans the toilets in our place, and I do that for one reason. Because if I ask someone else to do it, they can't say, well, he never does it. No, I do it first. You lead by example. And that's what this community is lacking right now. is leadership by example. If it seems a little funny, or if people are telling you the optics are bad on this, don't do it. It's that simple. And that's how you lead by ethics.
Okay, thank you. Same question. We're going to James next. Sorry, it's a random order here. So James, you're next. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I think I got the question. Yeah, for me, ethics is rather easy because in addition to us taking a 4-hour ethics training as a commissioner, as a chiropractor, and a physician of any kind, you take a Hippocratic oath to do no harm. And that's really what it is, do no harm. If I can look at myself in the mirror and say, am I truly voting on something that will do no harm to the community? Is this in the best interest of the community? That right there is my sniff test. Because if I can't go to sleep at night and feel good about the decisions I've made, I feel that not only I've failed you folks, I feel that I've failed my family, and I would never want to look back on a career as a commissioner regretting that I let this city down and knowing that I'm going to see what that looks like 10 or 20 years from now.
Okay, thank you. Now, same question, Christy. Would you like me to read it again? Sure. What does ethical leadership look like to you, and how will you help promote ethics to our city government and leadership?
Absolutely. Ditto what everybody just said. I would add to add some accountability in our government offices. I think we have a few issues that need to be looked at. But like they said, lead by example. I want to be able to walk around town and not be ashamed of a decision I made. I want to retire here and always know that I've always done the right thing and made the right choice for the tax-paying citizens, homeowners, business owners of our town. 100%. It's all that matters is integrity. It's all about integrity and being able to walk around with your chin up and look people in the eye and say, I did this because of us, for us. This is why I made this choice.
Thank you. Next question. What is your approach to handling controversial and complicated issues? This is also a two-part question. And what does active listening mean to you, and how will you show citizens that their voices matter? And the first one to take this question would be James.
Well, for me, controversy is not something I'm uncomfortable with the way that many could be, simply because when I treat people who are in pain in my industry, the customer's not always right. And sometimes I have to do things that they say, hey, I want you to adjust my neck the way my other chiropractor did. And maybe that's not clinically appropriate now. So for me, it would really be important to be sure that...
Sure. What is your approach to handling controversial and complicated issues? What does active listening mean to you, and how will you show citizens that their voices matter?
So the active listening part for me would be important, that coming back to this town hall conversation. When we hold a town hall, we actually engage with our citizens, and when feedback is given for 3 minutes at the podium, maybe it's necessary at times for staff or for a commissioner to say, can you please clarify that? Can you please explain further what that means? And that might be where we get to a more common answer, or it may be where we identify something that we're actually not able to solve. So I think that's the key to active listening, and I hope that if we can achieve the town halls in the future, that'll be how we can move forward with the agendas being driven by citizen input.
Thank you. Same question, Genece.
So I like facts and data. And you can often take complicated and complex and contentious issues and break them down into facts and data. Because once you get what the real problem is, because a lot of times you start up here and you say, well, okay, so this is the problem. But when you start peeling that onion back, you find out that's not the problem at all. It's actually something completely different. And you only do that through talking and listening and researching and understanding what the other person is really trying to say and tell you. To me, active listening is being quiet, which is hard for me. But active listening is being quiet and trying to really understand what that person is saying, and understanding and being empathetic to their position and their concerns. Then you have to take that data along with what you know in your heart, and you have to come to some conclusion about what is the right thing to do and what is the right path forward. And I think if you can clearly explain why you're making a decision a certain way, everyone's not always going to agree to it. You're not going to always be able to gain consensus, and it's not always going to be a kumbaya moment. But I think that by being open, being willing to listen, being transparent in your analysis, and putting as much information out as you can, then you can gain the trust that you need to be able to work through some of these very complicated and complex issues that we have here in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Poynter, same question.
Repeat it real quick.
Sure. And this is kind of a long question. What is your approach to handling controversial and complicated issues? What does active listening mean to you, and how will you show citizens that their voices matter?
Well, controversy is, usually in a little town, there's always controversy. Someone is pitting someone against somebody else, and so on and so forth. When I was a commissioner, I experienced this firsthand. With the golf course, we ended up hiring a company to take over the golf course because the golf course was really being run poorly, kind of the inmates running asylum kind of deal. And I got a lot of grief for that. It was the right decision. The biggest thing you need to do is not worry about getting reelected. If you don't worry about getting reelected and just worry about doing the right thing, if it doesn't work out, you don't get reelected. That's okay. You did what you thought was the right thing. And as far as active listening, I think it's incredibly important to listen to the community. When I was a commissioner, both times I was a commissioner, I had monthly come to the cafe, sit down, ask me any questions you want. It was in the evenings. My wife made wonderful cookies. I think that's why some people came. And we had cookies and drinks, and you could ask me any questions that you want, and I would try to get, if I didn't know the answer then, I would try to get the answer for them and follow back up. So that's the active listening that I'm familiar with. And my feeling on controversy is get as many facts as you can, be confident in what you do, and let the chips fall where they fall.
Thank you. Christy, same question.
Approach, there we are. To controversy, just do the research, actively listen to as many people as you can, get in front of or have in front of you, have meetings, study, do as much research as you can, and then let chips fall where they may. You have to make hard choices. This is not an easy position to be in. You have to make hard choices. But you have to listen to your taxpayers, you have to listen to your constituents, and make the best decision for the community.
Thank you. Joyce, same question.
The year my husband deployed to Iraq, I stepped up as the family readiness group leader. Actually won an award for 1,000 hours of volunteer work. It's actually a full-time paid position in all Army battalions now. We were stationed overseas. 350 soldiers went downrange, and we were left with about 1,200 family members, far, far away from their support systems. Enormous amount of controversy and complications going on, life-threatening things, with very young soldiers for the most part. Most of the Army is very young, and it fell to me to function, I think in many ways like a commissioner does, as a liaison between these complex government systems and staff members who needed to help these people and help them communicate with each other. We set up weekly meetings. We set up enormous amounts of activities for the families, for holidays, for communication. We had dozens of single soldiers downrange who weren't communicating with families back in the States. That fell to me. And people need to know you're listening. In terms of the active listening absolutely involves being quiet, and it involves repeating back. Someone called me today about the flooding that they were having, and they explained something complex, and I said, wait a minute, let me repeat that back so that I know I got what you just said. It's knowing you can find consensus if you want to. If you want to do the hard work of bringing all the stakeholders in and finding the best answer.
Thank you. Okay, the next question. How will you ensure responsible development that balances the needs of both residents and visitors? And we will start with Christy.
This is the controversial question. This is a big one around here. Balancing development with homeowners, residents. Is that
Of citizens
with the needs
and
of citizens? That's a tough one because there are personal property rights to keep in mind. But we have in place safeguards, and as long as these the codes, ordinances aren't changed, and we stay within what is acceptable to the residents of our community, I believe that we just have to stand firm. We have to stand firm, but we also cannot get in a situation like Tringali, like where we stood firm and we won, and now look where we are. Now we have 29 apartment units. We may have to go back to the table and negotiate because nobody wants that. I come from Duval County where they have so overpopulated. You cannot get out of your neighborhood. 4 individual people were killed just driving out of our neighborhood. It got so busy, so dense, so populated. It was awful. That's part of why I came here, because it's slow and it's quiet and it's Mayberry, and I want to keep it that way. So I will do everything that I can possibly do to keep us from getting overdeveloped, too many cars on the road, too many people flooding our infrastructure. It is an ugly, awful situation, and we don't want it here. What would I do? Everything I can do. I will vote I will vote against every overdevelopment that is in my power to vote against, to keep that from happening here. You don't want it. Trust me, I came from it. You don't want it to happen here. We have to stop that.
Thank you. The same question, Joyce.
Can you repeat so that I get it?
Sure. How will you ensure responsible development that balances the needs of residents and visitors?
Yeah, I've said to a lot of people, every empty lot on this island is going to be developed unless we all want to step up millions of dollars to buy and conserve land. So exactly as the question says, how do we do it more responsibly? Because we all drive around and are shocked at the trees that are coming down, shocked at everywhere you turn around, you feel like something more is developing. But it doesn't have to be done the way it is. There are laws that can be put in place, laws that can be changed. So, for instance, are percent impervious surface allowed on, impervious surface meaning when it rains, can the rain get actually back down into the ground? Or is it a hard surface and can't get into the ground and instead runs off and floods your neighbor? Our impervious surface percent is extremely high. I've never served in a city that has such a high percent. That could be lowered and force and allow more water to get into the ground. It would also enable more trees to be saved. we have things within our power that we can change. Last year, sitting at a commission meeting, I was shocked when our hired consultant and our utilities director both said that impact fees for new development needed to go up to $10,000. And that's a lot to connect to sewer and water. But if you put a well in, or if you put a septic in, it's going to cost a lot more than $10,000. So connecting to our system for $10,000 is not so bad. But our commission voted to reduce that fee by 9%. And so who's bearing the burden of our infrastructure? Existing residents. Existing residents have rights too.
Thank you. Tim Poynter, same question.
I would have all the city property remain city property and never give an inch of it away. That's one thing that the city can control, that no developer can control at all. It's the city property. That's what we need to do with that. As far as what you can do for responsible development, I think there needs to be conversations with the future developers. I don't know if there's any kind of discussion like how can we get what you want, but also get what the community wants? And what kind of incentives can we give you? You know, I'm building a project down next to the putt-putt, and that's in the CRA, Community Redevelopment. Now, that should be where the city says, what can we do to help you? This money is going to stay in the CRA for future sidewalks and this type of stuff. Maybe some of that money should go to the person who's building something to where they don't have to pay as many impact fees. And as an alternative for that, maybe they put more trees in, or maybe they do this, or maybe they do that. I don't think this community has that kind of discussion with anybody. You know, I mean, all of a sudden, you've got the Tringali property that was going to be 12 townhouses or whatever, and now it's whatever, a pond, 2 triplexes, and 20-unit, 45-story building. How did that get to that? But it seems like this community, it's all or nothing. And when you do an all or nothing, this is the kind of stuff you get. We need to start working with people. There's ways of doing this responsibly and making it a beautiful place, continue to make it a beautiful place for the whole island and the world.
Thank you. Same question. Genece?
So this is almost like the crux of what people are mostly concerned about, I think, in our city. You know, we live in a state that's very pro-development, and we'd very much like to take home rule away from local municipalities. So we fight and we work as hard as we can, I think, within the constructs of what Tallahassee puts on top of us to protect our property. I agree with Tim. City property is city property, and we don't need to be leasing it or loaning it or giving it away or whatever it is that happens in some of those areas. I sat on the Planning Advisory Board for several years, and we worked hard to reduce the impervious surface from what it was before. But the kinds of things that Joyce talked about are really nuts and bolts, kind of ticky things that you could sit down and begin to change over time to make the comprehensive land use plan and the land development code more reflective of what our community looks like today versus maybe what it looked like even 20 years ago or 10 years ago when some of that was built. I do think that it's important to balance the reality of the visitors that are coming onto our island. It's a big part of our economy. We need it, we want it, and And I do think that there are opportunities that we can set down, maybe with developers, maybe with other community organizations and leaders, to begin to figure out what makes better sense for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. James, same question.
Obviously, has been a topic that has circled in my 2 years as a commissioner, and I wish there was an easy answer. The Live Local Act really complicates this for us as a city. I am proud to say that this commission did reduce the density in commercial zoning from 34 to 18 to preemptively address this. So that is one step we have already taken. I'm more than happy to continue workshops on how we can revise and support the PAB in making the comp plan reflect what our citizens want now compared to what it was 20 years ago. Because ultimately I believe that's what it is. Genece had mentioned earlier, and she's absolutely right, nobody can do anything alone. So I'd be lying to you to tell you here that I have the exact plan laid out right now, rather than say I would challenge our staff to give each of these items a very, very good look over before they come to an agenda. And if there's anything potentially controversial, this prompts workshops, this prompts town halls, and we can have all of your feedback before it ever becomes a voting item. And I think it's that simple.
Thank you, all of you. So this is our last question that we have, but it's a long one. It's a two-part question. What does financial stewardship mean to you, and what will you do to help achieve good financial stewardship? The city continues to face financial realities, and tough decisions will need to be made. What increase to revenue or reductions to expenses might you propose? Okay, and we will go with Joyce.
Wish my German mother-in-law was here. You know, the Germans still celebrate frugality, and the notion of financial stewardship, and that doesn't magically happen without planning. If you don't tie, think about so many of us who might be retired or hoping to retire soon. How do you get there? You have to do long-term planning. And there are so many ways that we are not tying our budgeting to our long-term plan. And then you end up flying by the seat of your pants, making a potentially bad decision and potentially having to undo something that you already did. And that's expensive. Nobody looks in their yard and says, let's move the garage and put the shed there instead. You put the garage there already. I think it's staying. And maybe it was a bad decision, and maybe that's because of your lack of planning. And I think if we don't do more planning, we're just going to continue to get into trouble. And I think Commissioner Antun already said it about every city would love more money, right? And we would all love to pay fewer taxes. So can we at least have a conversation about potential alternative revenue streams? The Tourist Development Council collects a 5% bed tax, and it goes to the control of the Board of County Commissioners. And the control of that and understanding where that revenue is spread out needs to be looked at again. It was put together in 1988. That's a long time ago. Things have changed a lot since then. There are discussions that need to be had. And like Commissioner Antun said, I don't have all the answers, but we need to have complex discussions about these issues.
Thank you. Same question, Genece.
So, to me, financial stewardship means understanding where every single penny is going and why, and having long-term plans and capital improvement plans in place that you can follow year over year. We have a tendency to have chaos and emergencies, and that become overwhelming. And a good example of that is, for over 3 budget cycles, the Parks and Rec Department put $350,000 in the capital improvement plan to replace the playground equipment at Central Park. And for 3 budget cycles, the city commission took that money out. And in no meeting I was in or workshop did anybody ever ask the question, what are the implications of this? What happened? What's going to happen if we don't pay for this? Because nobody stood up and said, because in 2023, that equipment's at end of life, and we're going to take it down. So what happened in 2023? One day, the playground equipment disappeared, right? And then all hell broke loose. And it was the biggest emergency we've ever seen in this city. And playground equipment is not an emergency, as someone from the city so wisely told me not too long ago. So that is the kind of financial stewardship that needs to be in place. If you're going to put something in the budget or take something out of the budget, you need to understand what the implications are. And you need to understand them exactly. I would like to see those workshops, which we have before the budget cycle, be departmental specific, so that a department could actually come to the workshop and say, let's talk about my budget in front of the whole public. And then we would have the appropriate level of financial stewardship, I think, to be able to manage our money more appropriately. And I'm running out of time, so I can't answer the last part. Sorry.
Thank you. Christy?
So, financial stewardship means listening and taking care of the needs of the taxpayers and the residents of our city. I feel like we're so, we're behind and we're trying to catch up and we're gripped on the financial situation in this town. It's all about listening to the residents, figuring out the needs from the wants, which is a huge deal. Right now, I feel like we're dealing with pet projects. There's pet projects going on over the needs of our town. It has to be taken care of. It has to be looked at. There has to be accountability. There's a huge one. There's a big flashing red light out there, and it's the city golf course. $890,000 this year alone. We've had to pump into that. Every year, every single year since I've been here, I've gone to the meetings and they've put money, probably out of the fund you were speaking of, into trying to keep that golf course going. That's just one example of many. There are options for that. But putting the needs over the wants, the wishes of the taxpayers over the wishes of the Tourist Development Council. We have to put ourselves first because we're paying the bill. When it comes all the way down to it, we are paying for it.
Thank you. James? Sure. What does financial stewardship mean to you, and what will you do to help achieve good financial stewardship? The city continues to face financial realities and tough decisions will need to be made. What increase to revenue or reductions to expenses might you propose?
I think financial stewardship, in a simplistic sense, can be boiled down to spending the money of the taxpayers no differently than you would wisely spend your own money. And I would dare even say it might be more delicate than that. And so when there's been a couple of meetings where we've decided to throw a few $1,000s here or there into some projects that have just been whimsically recommended by a commissioner, my suggestion has been that if you choose to do that and it's not in the budget, why not take it out of your own paycheck? To me, that, by principle, is being fiscally conservative. So as I've mentioned, I've discussed a number of projects, and I'd love to flesh these out in the workshop. We've had a resident suggest a program that would be ultimately a voluntary donation by patrons in local businesses, not unlike as you get asked at the local grocery store to donate $1 to St. Jude's. St. Simon's Island had a project that generated nearly $1 million in the first year that was run. That's all people choosing to give their money away. It's not a tax, even though that's been what it's implicated as. I've discussed options about paid parking. There's multiple versions of how it can go. Resident exemptions are a possibility. But once again, talking about these things, having the conversations is critical. There's been a convenient number of reasons why we've had an issue come up, and then when it hits Facebook, we don't want to talk about it anymore as a commission because an election's coming up. And I just think that's absurd.
Thank you. Tim?
Give me the question one more time.
Sure.
Sorry.
No problem, it's a very long question. What does financial stewardship mean to you, and what will you do to help achieve good financial stewardship? The city continues to face financial realities, and tough decisions will need to be made. What increase to revenue or reductions to expenses might you propose?
Well, fiscal responsibility is just that, being fiscally responsible with the dollars that you get. One of the problems that I see, and I've seen for a long time, with the city is everyone wants to get everything fixed on the taxpayers that live here at the moment. These are long-term capital gain projects. I mean, the pool here is 50, 60 years old. If that needs to get replaced, why are we trying to do it on this year's budget? You know, there's a thing called taking out a bond to do very important, needed things that haven't been done here for a long time. I mean, this building could be rehabbed. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that can be done here. You can't do it on this year's income. You need to, and I think this commission talked about it, but they haven't done it. You need to plan. Planning is everything. And then you have to go out to the citizens and you have to say, look, these are the things that need to get done. It's been neglected for the last 20 years. But I'm not going to ask you to pay for this all this year. You're going to pay this year, and the person who moves in next year is going to start paying for it. The person who comes in 5 years from now is going to start paying for it, because this is going to be a 30-year bond, and they're going to get the benefits of this. And we need to spread this out so it becomes affordable for this community. You can't ask the citizens who happen to live here on this particular day, at this particular moment, to pay for all the inadequacies that's been happening over the years. It's insane. This is why nothing gets done. This is why every capital improvement thing just gets pushed over. It's like, well, we can't do this, now we got to push it over here. Well, then that gets pushed over to the next year, and then all of a sudden you don't have a playground equipment because we blew it.
Okay, thank you. So you know how I told you that was the last question? Well, we have 2 questions from the audience. So we'll start with the first question. 2 minutes each, okay? What is your view and goal on tourism? We will start with James.
Well, I'll say that the numbers that have been thrown around is somewhere between 1.2 to 1.6 million people a year come over that bridge to stay in our hotels, to eat in our restaurants, to shop in our shops on Center Street, to go to our beaches. So I think it's critical to identify that tourism is driving a lot of our economy here, but how much more do we want? Do we want more? And I would love to hear citizen feedback on that. I would say in my experience, the citizen feedback has been, we've got enough. So to me, I think we need to support the businesses that are here now, make sure that they can mature, but we don't need to foster more tourism. We don't need to turn this into a Myrtle Beach. That's just my personal opinion.
Thank you. Christy?
Tourism it's a necessity. We're a tourist island. We make a lot of money from it, and I believe that we should use that to our advantage. There are ways to capture some of that money that doesn't involve the TDC. There are ways of capturing some of this tourist money to apply it to our budget. We do not have to pay for, roads. We do not have to pay for upgrades to playgrounds and to restrooms at the beach. That can all be done with tourist money if we can have an open discussion about how we can have these tourists pay to use our roads and use our infrastructures in the way of paid parking. It's been brought up. I'm for paid by plate, not for residences, not for business owners, and not for their employees. It's a simple system, it's a scan, and our visitors could pay our expenses, and it's that easy. And it's not recreating the wheel. Many cities do it. It would cost us nothing to implement it. It would cost us nothing to park, and we would have money, lots of money, to put into these every need in every area of our government.
Thank you. Joyce? Hello? Yes? Okay, good. I think we have to be careful to deem it.
you know, we all love all our restaurants. Little town of 13,000. The amazing selection of restaurants that we have. Because they are bringing so much money, they are funding a lot of the businesses that we all also enjoy. The problem is when decisions are made for them before they're made for us, you know, or decisions for developers before they're made for the residents. We need to recognize that we are opening our city to them for free, but we are paying for our city. You know, drive around the city and look at your curbs and your sewer systems and your playgrounds and your pool and your beach walkovers and your bathrooms. And your parking. We're paying for all that. And we're putting out the welcome mat and offering it for free to the tourists. They do have to pay their 5% bed tax, but we have zero control over that money. And so I think there are ways that we could potentially capture some revenue from the tourists and have them help shoulder some of the maintenance costs that we have. You know, when I first started coming here in the 80s, gosh, I mean, I'm sure many of you are long-term residents. You look down the beach and hardly see anybody. And now it's sometimes shocking how many people there are. It's changed. And so we have to have discussions about should some of our rules change. Maybe they shouldn't. Maybe we like it the way it is. But let's have a discussion and figure out what is it that we want and what is in our best interests.
Thank you. Tim?
If we didn't have tourism, plain and simple. This is a great community, but they can't go to all the restaurants every night. I mean, we need to have tourism to come to our businesses. We employ a lot of people in town. You know, our little organization employs a lot of people. And that only happened because of the increase in tourism and stuff like that, which gave us the opportunity. You absolutely can capture more dollars. And it definitely has to be talked about. We spend $500,000 a year beautifying the downtown. It's not free. The citizens are paying. A beach walkover, $350,000. We're paying for that. We're not all using it, but we're paying for it. And I don't see the obligation of the citizens of Fernandina to have to pay for everything so everyone else can enjoy it for nothing. And that includes the county. I mean, there's an awful lot of county people who are coming over to our beaches. And I don't see an obligation that we need to supply parking for everybody who comes across that bridge so they have an easy place to park at the beach. So we need to have an honest and substantive conversation on how we can look at some of these issues and drill them down a little bit, because when people say it's not friendly, well, it's not friendly to the citizens that are paying for everybody else. That's not friendly either. So we need to have an honest conversation about this and kind of figure out where we're going. It's only going to get worse.
Thank you. Genece?
I would say that my vision is that tourism is an integral part of our economy, and it drives a considerable and actually a very large part of our economy. Again, I agree, we would not have not just the restaurants, but the bars and the clothing stores and the other stores and amenities and the short-term rentals and all of those things that we have here in this community that make us such a thriving community. It is a huge economic part of our community, and we need to respect that and understand it. Our goal would be, I think, for the city to work with the TDC, with the county, and with the community to begin to understand how we can help pay for some of the infrastructure and the activities that, and the wear and tear that tourism and tourists are bringing into our community. You know, the city can't have a bed tax because Tallahassee says so. So again, this is another example of Tallahassee telling us what we can and cannot do and how we can manage. So it is critical that we work with the TDC and with the county and with other visitor tourist-centric organizations to begin to understand how we better manage some of this infrastructure. And it's not an easy conversation. It's not going to be, again, this is a complex, convoluted issue with a lot of emotion. But if we don't talk about it, it'll never change. And so that's what we have to do. We have to start sitting down and talking about it honestly and openly. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have one more question from the citizens. And this question is, in your opinion, what is the most important role a member of the commission plays? What is the most important role a member of the commission plays? And we will start with Christy this time.
I believe the most important role is to listen to your constituents, work with county officials, work with chambers of commerce, and develop relationships, work with CSS. We need healthy, strong relationships. We need some future planning. We need a long-term vision, and we need to start putting processes in place and start applying these to our town, because we are currently playing whack-a-mole.
Thank you. James, same question.
Yeah, in my 2 years as a commissioner, I'd say that in the most simplest sense, I'm the liaison between you, the people, and the city staff. My job is to make sure that whatever desires, needs, or concerns you have, city staff is not only aware of and addressing, but then trying to be more proactive about how we can avoid having the same concerns come up over and over again. I think it's our job to be accountable to you and as transparent as possible about what's going on at City Hall on a day-to-day basis. And I think it is important to work with our other government bodies. I think to be able to continue a strong relationship with our county commission, to make sure that we have our lobbyists in Tallahassee, Mr. Jacobs and Ms. Lorelei, to make sure that the needs of the city are prioritized so that any possible grant funding that can supplement what we can't budget for is gained, because I think there's critical money on the table for that.
Okay, thank you. Genece.
So we are a representative government. So I think the most important role that any city commissioner has is to represent the citizens of the city and to make decisions and to make votes and to work on your behalf. We have to do that with all the other entities that are around us and with the city staff, and to ensure that we are being good stewards of your money, being good stewards of your properties, being good stewards of your community, and I think most importantly, understanding and representing what you want for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Joyce.
Yeah, I think the role of commissioners is exactly as has been said, liaison to the community, and listening to the community and hearing what the community needs are, and communicating that to the staff. The commission only hires 3 people. The commission hires our charter members, the attorney, the city clerk, and the city manager. The rest of the city staff are hired by the city manager. And so we're sort of a go-between on the commission. And we cannot help the city staff move forward with a vision unless they know what the community wants. But I also think it's incumbent upon the commissioners to have a vision themselves and to be leaders and to help create and envision a path for how we're going to get where we want to go. When we all go downtown to our beautiful historic district, it didn't look like that 60 years ago. You know, there was quite a bit of modification to the roads and to the trees and to the walkability downtown. Commissioners 50 years ago had some vision and made some complex, difficult decisions to lead the community toward that. And 50 years from now, when pretty much all of us are going to be dead, yeah? I'm looking around. 50 years from now, what are the future residents going to look back and think about us? Where did we lead them? Where do they need us to get them to? Thanks.
Thank you. Tim?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. In your opinion, what is the most important role a member of the commission plays?
Well, aside from trying to get as much information from the community as you can get, I think it's very important that the commission is a leader. We don't have any we would not have any day-to-day operations over the city staff. That's not what the role is. The role of the city commissioner is to work with the city manager and to determine where you believe the future of this community should go. And you do that with the input of your community. But there's a reason why they're not running and we're running. They want us to represent them and then to do the work, do the heavy lifting, figure it out, present it to them, get the city manager to move on it and get city staff to implement that. That's what the role of a city commission is. It's not the day-to-day operations of the city. It's visioning for the city and working together and translating that vision to the city manager, and the city manager is tasked with implementing that. That's what I think is important.
Okay, thank you. So this ends the question portion. Go ahead, Sheila. Right, so we'll do our closing statement, and everyone has 1 minute to do their closing statement. And I think since we started at that end of the table in the beginning, why don't we start at this end of the table and work our way down with the closing statements. And I just want to say thank you all very much for answering your questions. Those were all very thoughtful answers. So, James Antun.
Thank you. For my closing statements, you've heard how I feel about creating revenue sources. You've heard how I feel about wanting your feedback. Plain and simple, as Mr. Poynter mentioned earlier, I think one of the keys to being a good commissioner is not worrying about getting reelected. And I can promise you I'm not worried about getting reelected as much as I'm worried about doing right by the citizens. So that's going to be my platform. I may not be perfect, but I'm here to do what y'all asked me to do as long as it doesn't violate my ethical code and violate any legal issues that the city should have. Thank you.
Yes. When I made a difficult decision to run, one of the very first posts I put on my campaign Facebook page was a sentence that I feel really, really strongly about, and it's preserving our natural beauty will protect our economy. You know, longtime residents stayed here because it's so beautiful. Those of us who moved here came here because it's so beautiful. It's the driver of our economy. This is an incredibly unique barrier island that has stunning beauty. And if we don't protect that, we will go into decline. It drives our property values, it drives the tourism, that drives our economy. And there are ways that we can protect it, and that is my goal.
Thank you.
So thank you all for being here tonight. This has been an amazing turnout, and I really appreciate it. And thank you to Sheila and Kim and Brian and everybody who worked hard to put this all together tonight. What I would say is that elections have consequences, and that this election may well determine the future of this city for decades to come. So if you want a city where commissioners make decisions based on facts and not personal interest, then I would ask you to vote for me. And if you want a city that's committed to investing in making the city easy to do business with for both small businesses and citizens, then I'm the person that you should vote for. This has been a really wonderful opportunity tonight, and I appreciate every single one of you being here. And I also need you to remember, our election is at the very bottom of the ballot. We have thousands of people who do not vote all the way down the ballot. So you got to vote all the way to the end to vote for us. So don't forget, we're at the bottom, but we're the best, okay? So thank you all very much for coming tonight.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for coming and for having me here to answer questions. I want to tell you, I'm nervous and I'm freezing. And my nose is running, sniffling because we're under the vent. But again, thank you so much for having us. I want you to know that I will represent the taxpayers, residents, and business owners of the city of Fernandina Beach. I want everyone to feel heard. I want to be approachable with the good and the bad, but I want, in the end, to have the respect of everybody here because I want to live my life here, I want to retire here, and I want you to all think, well, she did a good job. I will represent you. I will have your money, your taxes, 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 taxes. We all pay it, so let's get a grip on the spending. Let's get a grip on the projects. Let's put our families first, our community first, and find ways to get tourism dollars into our coffers. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, I've been a commissioner 2 other times. First time I did it was okay, made some mistakes. Second time, a little bit better. I'm ready to hit it out of the park. I love this community, that's why I'm running again. I'd love to have your vote because every vote counts. And by voting, you're putting a stake in this community that you guys all love. And just get out and vote, whether you vote for me, just get out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you.